Hello.
Hey, what's going on?
We're back. Fourth time's the charm.
Yeah, we had some technical difficulties.
I'm just not going to move in case anything gets unplugged or turned off. So
yeah,
just sit really still.
There we go.
Okay. All right. Well, so this is episode 3 of Hexellent. I'm Leanne.
And I'm Brock.
And we're going to be talking about some cryptids today. This will be a episode in a series of discussions about cryptids.
Yeah.
So specifically, we're going to be talking about Pennsylvania wild men.
Yeah, you probably know a lot more about this than I do. I just kind of was back and forth in that rabbit hole of YouTube between like Bigfoot and wild men and dog men and werewolves and
All right.
all that stuff. So,
Well, before we get into it, do we have any updates, anything we need to talk about?
we got a puppy, and she is the devil.
She's a demon, yes.
Yes, she is.
So if you hear her or see her, I apologize.
Yeah.
She does what she wants.
Yep, she does what she wants. She runs the show.
And then I also just wanted to mention that we plan to be a little more organized. I think the first 2 episodes were kind of just out of excitement thrown together. But then going forward, we have a plan. We got a whiteboard, we got a bulletin board and some string, and I think we're ready.
Yeah, it was the pandemic. We were just doing things,
Yep.
like a lot of people were, and now we need some organization and planning, and that's what we are going to do.
Yeah, so I think we're ready.
Yep.
All right.
So, let's get into it here, right?
Yep.
What do you got?
It's a lot.
Okay.
All right. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about the wild men of Pennsylvania. And this was actually your idea. You came to me and said that you had been researching wild men and you would like to do an episode on it. So, I didn't really have any context.
Okay.
Did you have any thoughts in mind before I get started?
Not necessarily. Just more or less goes along with people disappearing, people that are never discovered or go disappearing in mysterious circumstances. And some people say Bigfoot, some people say wild men, some people say maybe other forms of cryptids, but
Okay.
no one really knows.
All right. Well, then I got some exciting stuff for you here.
All right.
So, like I said, I kind of went into this with no concrete goal. I just was looking up wild men of Pennsylvania. That's where I started. And what I found is that there's actually a lot of people in the state of Pennsylvania whose last name is Wildman.
Yeah.
That's it. End of episode. We're done.
Our realtor.
Our realtor, yes. She was a Wildman. No. So I started putting together just different things to see where it would lead me. And what I found is two credible sources. And these 2 sources are what led me down the rabbit hole. So I'm just going to give you like a brief overview of the article. So first, we'll start with an article I found in the Philadelphia Times. It was from November 10th, 1879. So 2 guys and a guide, I'm guessing some sort of Native American guide, were hiking and hunting in the woods of Wayne County, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
They were alerted to the presence of someone by their dog. So they had their dogs out hunting. The dog saw something and alerted them. What appeared before them was a man wearing no clothes other than the remnants of an old corduroy suit. And they just kind of stood there in shock for a few minutes. After that wore off, they began to chase the man. Charles and Frank and all their dogs began to chase the man. But they lost him in the woods. They were trying to track him down.
Okay.
What they did identify about him, or what they did see, was that his skin was caked in dirt, his hair and his beard were long and matted, and that he was yelling unintelligible words at the men. So in the article, it also mentioned that this same description of the same type of man had been seen before in the area by lumber workers. So this wasn't the first time, but this is the first time it was reported in the newspaper. So kind of interesting.
Yeah.
The second story comes from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, so Amish County, which we've talked about before. Yes. This is actually 1978. Amish farmers working on their farm were approached by a large man. He was yelling unintelligible phrases, waving his arms. He was covered in thick, dark hair and wearing nothing but an old pair of boxer shorts.
That seems to be a constant, is like the torn up clothing. That is the difference between like the Bigfoot and wild men.
Yeah.
That's what I've noticed, is like tattered and torn clothing compared to ape-like creature walking through the woods.
Yeah. No, I agree. They definitely differentiate between the two. Like the old clothing makes them seem more human-like. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually going to make a joke after I said that sentence, but you cut me off. So I'm going to start again. He was
sorry.
covered in thick, dark hair and wearing nothing but his old pair of boxer shorts. And I was going to say, kind of sounds like our house.
Oh, yeah. Huh. I have a good sweater game going, so I could easily be mistaken for a wild man out in the woods.
All right. Sorry. I thought it was funny. That was funny.
That's okay.
So anyway, the farmers out in their field, they ran and they hid. But there was an elderly woman living nearby, and I guess she heard all the ruckus, so she ran outside to see what it was. And she said that when the wild man saw her, he sat down on the ground and stared up at the sky. He stayed like that for some time, but when the men tried to approach him, he stood up and again began yelling unintelligible phrases and running away. The woman, who was actually the one to get nearest to the wild man, she reported that he smelled like rotting flesh. It's kind of gross.
Interesting.
So anyway, all of these people, so at this point, several people had come out onto the field to see what everything was about, all the different noises and everything. And several people reported that they watched as a wild man walked towards a barn and just disappeared into thin air. So he didn't actually walk back into the woods. He didn't walk out into the field. He just disappeared.
Just disappeared.
Yeah. So these two stories are, like I said, that's where I got started. So it got me thinking about like what could this be? Is it just a person? Is it an animal? Is it what could it possibly be? So here we go. I started with Lancaster County because we've talked about that before, and that story had the most credible witnesses. So I just thought it would be a good place to start. So there are several legends in Pennsylvania that talk about human-like creatures. They're about 4 feet tall, and they live in heavily wooded areas, specifically along the banks of the Susquehanna River. There, they steal apples from picnickers and stare down at them from high up in the trees. This is actually how they got their names. They are called the albatwitch,
Okay.
A-L-B-A-T witch, and that's in Pennsylvania Dutch, which translates to the apple snitch, which is kind of cute.
Interesting.
Yep.
I did
Yep.
not know that.
So the apple snitch is a local legend. It tells of a species that became extinct or was driven near extinction in the late 19th century. Chickee's Rock is actually where they're mostly sighted, which is a rock within Lancaster County. Amish farmers hang out there, and I guess they picnic there. And like I said, that's how they got their name, stealing apples from picnickers. Sightings of the albatwitch tapered off in the late 1800s, but that actually picked up again starting in the 50s. In the 50s through the 70s, several reports of a man-like creature and he made a sound like the cracking of a whip in the woods late at night. So they would see this creature, they would hear the sound of the cracking of the whip, which actually reminds me of Bigfoot. I think we've seen some things before where you hear this like whip cracking sound.
Yeah, or like wood knocking.
Or wood knocking, yeah.
But also, the other similarity is the like whooping noises and the weird sounds they make as if they're communicating.
Yeah.
But it's unintelligible to us.
Yeah, there was that video that we watched, and it was just like a bunch of guys in the woods at night, and it was like that whooping sound and the whip cracking sound.
Yeah, I
And it was probably in Washington or something like that.
It was like their hunting spot or
Right.
something that they would go to, and they started catching the sounds like late at night in their like little fortress thing they built.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, the sightings tended to taper off. They appeared again in the 50s through the 70s. And during this time, the stories include numerous sightings of hairy humanoid figures from Lancaster County, Columbia, and North Annville, which I think are all right there
Okay.
close together.
I'm not too familiar with that area.
Yeah, they're actually all within a 20-mile range. There's also been sightings from neighboring York County, Pennsylvania, which is home of the Susquehannock tribe, who coincidentally used the image of a small, hairy ape-like creature on their war shields.
Interesting.
Yes, so there's a connection to Native Americans there. And actually, that reminded me, I didn't really write anything about this or look into it too much, but is it the Pukwudgie? The Pukwudgie from Massachusetts is like that small, he lives in the Bridgewater Triangle. He's like a small creature, and he'll try to get people to come with him into the woods. Little small, hairy man.
I can't say I've heard of that.
He's the one that said, "You watch you." He went up to that lady and he was like, "You watch you."
Oh, yeah.
And then they translated it to like, "We want you."
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, I gotcha.
So anyway, we'll talk about that later. But
Okay.
that's kind of what it reminded me of. These small little creatures that come out, steal your apples, you know. So something else that these stories reminded me of, and you kind of hit on this. We're talking about their clothing. So it actually brought to mind werewolves. So I looked into the history of werewolves in Pennsylvania, and unsurprisingly, there are a lot because of the immigrants from like England, specifically like Ireland and Scotland. There's a lot of stories about werewolves in those areas.
Okay.
I always think about American Werewolf in London.
Yep.
Don't they go visit Scott? I don't know where they go. They go to the pub in the woods.
Yep.
So anyway, like I said, the story of the werewolf comes from European folklore. So this is just in general, the story of the werewolf is European, specifically German and French, which were some of the first immigrants to Pennsylvania. Henry Schumacher comes up a lot when we're talking about werewolves. Excuse me. It's debated whether his stories
Debater.
It's debated whether his stories are 100% true, but he has recorded first-hand accounts of sightings. Particularly, he has multiple accounts from a man named Peter Pence, who was a German frontiersman in Clinton County, Pennsylvania. Apparently, his great-aunt, Mary DePoe, D-E-P-O, I just figured it was DePoe, I don't know, sounds right? She was a midwife living in Buffalo Creek. So again, this is Clinton County, Pennsylvania. She had delivered a set of triplets at a nearby farm late at night. And she set out across the fields to make her way back home. And on her way there, she approached her barn and she saw what appeared to be a large black dog, which by itself is pretty scary. But as she crossed the path of the dog under the moonlight, she identified the creature as a wolf. She says as soon as their eyes met, the wolf began to lunge at DePoe, sprinted towards her front door, and she was actually able to close the door before the wolf attacked. So her husband was upstairs. He was startled awake, grabbed his rifle, went to the door. He saw that the wolf was still nearby.
Right.
I don't know what's happening in my mouth. The wolf was still nearby. So he actually aimed and shot at the wolf. The wolf collapsed, and the husband DePoe, neared the wolf, his gun raised. He prepared to shoot again, but he realized what he was looking at. He stared down at what should have been the body of a large black wolf, but instead was the body of his neighbor, who in his last breath thanked DePoe for ending his torment. Pretty interesting, right?
That is pretty interesting.
So that's a popular story in Lancaster County folklore.
I feel like there's a lot of stories like that in that area.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just reference somebody, The Wandering Woodsman on YouTube. Fantastic YouTube channel. He's from that area, and he's very educational with what he covers. And he covers some of the folklore and some of the, slave aspects of the area and some of the just stuff people don't really know about, and areas that have kind of just been overgrown and cemeteries that have been forgotten about. Mm-hmm. So we're actually going to put a link to his stuff in our notes for the end of the podcast. That'll be on Substack, and if you're on our subscription list, that'll be sent out to you in an email, and you can check all that out. Yep,
and we'll talk about that at the end of the podcast, let everyone know where to get more information.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It's better to say it more than once.
Yep.
So yeah, there's multiple stories like this, and specifically I said Henry Schumacher. Henry or Henry? Was it Henry? It's Henry Schumacher, and the DePoe family. But there's also some other neighboring families that had similar stories all throughout the 1800s. George Quigley, who was the father of one of Shoemaker's informants. So Shoemaker would go out, he would talk to people, and then they would send him to other people to get more and more references. So he was the father of one of his informants. He claimed to have seen a brown female wolf hanging around his property during the day, which is very odd. The wolf just seemed off to him. He decided to take action, so he shot at the wolf, hitting her in the foreleg, and she let out a loud scream that almost sounded human-like to Quigley. The wolf ran off, and he figured that was good enough to keep her away from the farm. But But shortly after the incident, an old woman showed up at a neighboring farm claiming that she had accidentally shot herself in the forearm while hunting.
Huh.
Yeah. So the neighbor took care of the woman's arm, and the wolf never showed up on Quigley's property again. Similarly, within the same year, a relative named Philip Quigley found that his horses were being agitated night after night. So they were making noise. They were in the barn. They were waking up the family. It actually got so bad that Quigley could no longer use the horses because they were so agitated. So he decided to sell them. Convinced that something unusual was happening in the stables, Quigley's wife actually convinced him to let her stay overnight in the barn with the horses to see if she could find something, out of the ordinary. At midnight, a large black wolf jumped over the stable doors and caused the horses to panic. So Mrs. Quigley aimed her gun, fired, and she hit the wolf in the jaw. The wolf made human-like screams, fled to the nearby woods, and shortly after, another neighboring farm actually saw a woman who approached them and asked them with help resetting her jaw. So.
That's pretty creepy.
So I don't know. Could the Wildman be an albatwitch? Could the Wildman be a werewolf? Or is it something else?
Could they just be like mountain people?
They could just be mountain people.
Generations of mountain people just disconnected from the rest of society?
Maybe. Just seems strange that in those cases there were wolves that...
Yeah, that is strange.
...showed up with the same injuries as a person.
Now, is that like a skinwalker ranch type of thing, too?
That is kind of what I was thinking. Could they be skinwalkers?
Possibly.
All right. Well, we're still going here. So, another cryptid that lives on the west side of the state is called the Grassman.
Interesting.
I actually call him the Grassman.
I like me some Grassman.
Yes, that's what I was laughing at. You're the Grassman. They actually call him the Grassman of Ohio, but he has been spotted in western Pennsylvania. I get my east and west mixed up. For more than 150 years, eastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania residents have reported a bipedal creature covered in hair around 9 feet tall, lurking through rural... There's that word. I hate that word.
Rural
farms and fields. He allegedly eats wheat and other grasses, which, same. I like wheat and other grasses.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Which is why he's called the Grassman. He's usually spotted in groups and gives off a strong odor, similar to that previous story from Lancaster County. It smells like rotting flesh. So...
What happens if you don't shower?
That, yes. So, I mean, this sounds like something else to me. This sounds like it could be related to another cryptid-type creature that's been spotted in other states as well.
Okay.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So I can't finish the episode without talking about Bigfoot. When most people talk about Bigfoot, what they're thinking, Bigfoot, what they're thinking about is the western part of the country. So western part of the United States, they're thinking California, Oregon, Washington, but actually the state of Pennsylvania ranks number 3 in Bigfoot sightings.
I did read that.
That's pretty interesting.
It is, yeah. But you know what else is interesting though? Like I work at a bait shop, so I sell hunting and fishing licenses. I ask a lot of hunters and everything in this specific area if they've ever witnessed anything weird or just something they couldn't explain, and this area just doesn't seem very prominent. It seems more western side of the state, or like northeast PA or northwest PA, like a lot up like the Erie Lake area.
Well, I would say Lancaster is that central Pennsylvania?
That's
eastern central Pennsylvania.
I thought that was more like southeast, southwestern.
I don't know where anything is.
I don't know. Don't listen to us.
Yeah, we'll get a map. We'll post a map. Yeah, so anyway, I was thinking about Bigfoot, popular in the western part of the country, and then I said Bigfoot's number 3, or Bigfoot sightings, Pennsylvania ranks number 3. So anyway, Let me follow my train of thought back there. So there have been approximately 1,340 reported Bigfoot sightings in the state of Pennsylvania. Okay. Just for reference, there are 1,697 in California and 2,032 in Washington. So we're really not that far behind.
No, we're not.
No. The Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society has traced Bigfoot since 1858.
Wow.
Yeah. Right.
That is a long time.
And sightings trickle in every year. So in 2000, I started with some of the more recent ones just because I had older stories, so I thought I'd go to some newer stories. 2013 near Kinzua State Park, which is actually somewhere I want to go. That looks really cool. There's an old bridge there that you can walk out on that overlooks the forest. It looks really cool. So Kinzua State Park. A man actually posted a video of 2 alleged Bigfoot-type creatures, which can still be found on the internet, and we'll post a link to.
Okay.
In 2015, Bigfoot tracks were found and wood-knocking sounds were heard in Bradford County, which is very close to that Kinzua State Park.
Yeah.
And more recently, a mountain biker was taking a rest and was watching what he thought to be a black bear rummaging through some brush. When the creature stood up, it revealed it was about 7 feet tall, bipedal, covered in hair, and appeared to be a Bigfoot.
Interesting.
So that actually brings me to a personal story about us. For our birthday, we decided to go to Raystown Lake, which is in
Central
Central
PA.
Pennsylvania.
Yep.
They have a big lake there. You can go kayaking. You can go hiking.
What's the college that it's near?
I don't remember the name of the college. Juniata.
Juniata?
Juniata College.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So there you go. It's out near there. It's a really cool place. You can go hiking, biking, like I said, kayaking, whatever. There's
Yep.
lots of stuff to do out there. If you like the outdoors, lots of cabin rentals, that kind of thing. So anyway, that's what we did for our birthday. We went there for a few days.
Yep.
And I think it was probably day 2, maybe, we were mountain biking.
Yeah, I think it
that's-
was. I think it was day 2 of mountain biking.
So they have a whole bike park there, a whole mountain bike park there. And I think it was day 2 of us biking. And it was a little bit of a longer trek. And it was hot. And I was over it and done.
Yeah,
And-
we were trying to, up our mountain biking skills
Yeah.
and, just do something a little more difficult. And, the trails beat us up.
So we were taking a break, and I was not having a very good time, and Brock suggested I eat an apple, which helped. So as I'm sitting there eating my apple, we heard something.
She was hangry.
I was hangry, yeah. We heard something, and I don't know if you want to describe what we heard.
I really I swore I heard something like growl. I swore I heard that at some point, right when everything started happening. Mm-hmm. Then we decided, okay,
I heard that too, yeah.
we're gonna just keep riding. We decided to keep riding, and every time we stopped, we could hear something not too far off in the tree line, step with us.
Yeah, so it was like we would take our last step, and a second later, you would hear something else step in the woods.
And this, I would say, went on for a good 2.5, 3 miles trying to get out of there, out of the woods, that we felt like something was following us. Eventually, we got back to more of the congested part of the trail system, and everything seemed fine after that. The only thing we really thought it could have been after researching more in the area was possibly a bobcat.
But people say there aren't bobcats in Pennsylvania.
That's mountain lions.
Oh, mountain lions. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this would have been.
But I felt like this was something big. This,
It did. It sounded big, and
It sounded like something. The only place we didn't look was up. We didn't look up. We looked all throughout. So with these stories specifically, they saw the albatwitch or whatever it was up there in the trees throwing apples. Could he or she possibly be a baby Bigfoot?
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder that too, because a lot of the missing 411 and stuff that we watch and follow, it's people get snatched and they're gone.
And they usually find their clothing and their shoes up.
Yeah, or
which is
it's
odd.
almost like something grabbed them and pulled them up, and they were flipped upside down.
Yeah. Oh, and the other weird thing about that story that you didn't mention is beforehand, the crows...
Oh, yeah, you can explain that.
The crows were following us. So the crows were following us. They were squawking at us, and it almost sounded like they were calling or something. And I was like, oh, they're being nice and friendly. Well, I actually read something later that said that if crows see an injured animal, they'll actually follow it and call out to bigger animals, expecting that the bigger animal will kill it and then share the...
Yep.
So, yeah,
crows are smart.
We were being hunted by something out in the woods.
Were we? Is that what
Yeah.
we were being hunted by
Yeah.
a wild man?
A wild man. And actually, no, I said this because in October of 2020, around 6:30 p.m., very close to the area, a man who was staying in a cabin actually saw something moving in the hemlocks near the cabin. As he got closer, he saw what he described as an 8-foot tall humanoid up in the trees. So he was up in the air. The creature had broad shoulders and made knocking and howling sounds. The man stated that it was definitely not a black bear, which are very common in the area.
Ah, that's creepy.
Yeah.
That is definitely creepy.
Yeah. So I think we went in, 2020 as well?
Yeah, we were there 2020.
We were there August of 2020, so this is 2 months after. In the same area.
Yeah.
A little bit creepy,
That
right?
is a little creepy, yep.
So anyway, I'm wondering what you're thinking. Is there a wild man or wild men in PA? Do you think it is the albatwitch, a werewolf, a black bear? Do you think it's a Grassman? Do you think it's a Bigfoot?
Yeah, if you guys have any stories of your own that you would like to share, we would love to read them.
Yeah.
And you can email us at hexellentlv.
I wasn't done yet.
gmail.com. I know you're not. I'm just letting it go. You said repetition of contact information and where they can find our information.
No,
so,
but I want to know what you think. What do you think it is?
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm into some weird shit, so it could be
All right. Well, I'll tell you what I
fairies
think.
for all I know.
I'll tell you what I think. So I'm gonna go with Bigfoot and
You're
little
gonna go Bigfoot.
and little Bigfoot, like baby Bigfoot. I think that it's possible for there to be a species that exists that we just don't know about yet. Because people always say, okay, everything that can be discovered, we've already discovered. I don't know that I believe that. Because think about like oceans, think about insects, think about all the things that are discovered almost yearly that we didn't know existed before.
But as you stated, didn't you say that they've been tracking Bigfoots in Pennsylvania since
1858.
Yeah, but what have they found?
They found tracks. They have reported stories from multiple witnesses. They have all the sounds, the cracking sounds, the howling sounds.
Why hasn't anything been found, like, decaying out in the woods?
Because, again, going back to what we said about that whip cracking sound, if Bigfoot is an interdimensional species,
Okay, that's where I thought you were going with this. Yep.
if he exists in, more than one dimension or something like that, could that snapping sound be his entrance and exit into our reality?
Like the tear in the time,
Correct.
so to speak.
Not to get all weird, but yes, to get all weird.
Now,
Could that be? Because also, think about it. Usually when you have that sound, you get a bright light, you get the flashing, and usually with all of those things, orbs, all of those things, Bigfoot is present.
also people mention that things go quiet. Like there's no birds,
Right.
there's no trees moving, there's nothing, and it's silent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like you're being watched.
Mm-hmm.
And you almost might lose track of where you're at momentarily, even if it's a place that you know.
Yeah.
Interesting. That is interesting.
So yeah, I'm just personally going to go with Bigfoot just based on all of the, the stories, the hair, the height, the appearance of a bear, leaving behind tracks, the sounds, the knocking, being up in the trees. If it's an ape-like creature, that would make sense. Stealing apples, eating grass and wheat from crops.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Do you know, or have you looked up the number of missing people in our, like, national, or not national parks, but state parks or anything like that?
So it's very hard to differentiate it in the state of Pennsylvania. I did look up some missing people within our area, but I couldn't narrow down the number by state park or by national park. So that may be something for a future episode.
Okay.
But yeah, that could potentially be related as well. We have missing 411, people that go missing in parks. Could they just be feral people? I don't know.
Because, like, a lot of other YouTubers and podcasts have covered about, that child that went missing and,
Oh, yeah, there was a series of children that went missing. I can't think of the year that it was.
No, I don't think we're talking about the same thing.
Oh.
Where they sent in the, like, Green Berets to
No.
go in and kill the wild men in the one... Was it North Carolina?
Yeah, and they say that
Daniel
that's,
Martin. Was
yeah,
it Daniel Martin?
It was. And that's why they say state parks are off limits at certain times, and that's why they're...
Yeah, or
Right, because-
they don't put much into it if people go missing because it's almost like
Right. Like, that's an area that things like this are supposed to be kept.
Yeah.
So not to get too far off subject, but, I mean, it could be possible. Pennsylvania is full of state parks. Pennsylvania is full of
And I
hiking
guess
trails, biking trails.
we have a ton of mines
ton of mines.
Cave systems.
The Appalachians are here.
Yeah.
Appalachians are here. I mean, it's a really diverse area. So anyway, we would like to know what you think. I'll let this be the actual end of the episode.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to kick you guys out or anything
it's
like
okay.
that.
So yeah, why don't you check us out on Facebook, Instagram. You can send us a Gmail. Comment on our story. Let us know what you think. Tell us your stories, and we'll present them on the next episode. So yeah, stay tuned, and we'll have more on cryptids coming up soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And once again, just to reiterate everything she said, Substack, we're going to start using that as our info dump for everything. We're going to get a Patreon up and running just for some extras, freebies. You could see us record this live, stuff like that, just what everybody else is doing. And we appreciate the support, and we're just going to continue to try to evolve what we started doing here. And send us an email at hexcellentlv@gmail.com. And tell us your stories or a topic you'd want us to cover, or if you had any weird experiences throughout Pennsylvania with any type of cryptids or folklore or any unexplained event.
Yep, definitely. We hope to hear from you guys. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.